I think yes, we are live. We are going live as promised. 1 minute late, but nevertheless, we are on air. Guys, good to see you. Both all the way from New Zealand. Exciting match, and the aspiring cricket commentator, upcoming commentator Yasiru Bandar. I saw him doing some updates, live updates this morning. Yasiru, how's it going, buddy? How's your new venture?
It's going on. I was really happy to see the result at the end of the day. It was
Ex-
amazing.
Exciting game, isn't it? Exciting game. Yeah, you're right about it. And the well, better late than never, Boa. It was a disastrous tour. I'm sure that you probably would have kept a close eye on the proceedings in New Zealand. As a high performance man, it was the first initially the two test matches, and exciting first test, as we all know, and went down to the wire again. Last ball, we lost the test. Then we had a disastrous second test, and then the wonders. That's what we are going to talk about. Yes, it's always good to win. There's no doubt about it. That especially playing in New Zealand, it doesn't matter that whether we play New Zealand A, B, or C. Win is a win. I hope you guys agree, and it's good to win. But I don't know whether it's already too late. Have we lost the cause? We have to play the qualifiers for the World Cup. And correct me if I'm wrong. You boys, you know better than I do, because that qualifying and only two teams go for the World Cup. And then out of I think I don't know how many teams are up for the qualifiers, but only two teams will go in. Eight countries have already secured their places in the World Cup, so two are fighting to get in. It's going to be a hard task, and all what happened in New Zealand didn't help our cause. Now we have to go back to Zimbabwe, back to the drawing board, and just have to do the needful, have to keep on winning. From my point of view, when you play the qualifiers, you can't have a bad day. But correct me if I'm wrong. And then the weather factor comes in. It's all going to be a very, it's a hard task. It's the future is not looking great. Yasiru, what are your thoughts, mate?
Actually, Sharit, I was very disappointed to see with the result, because I think Sri Lanka, we had a very good reputation after winning the '96 World Cup, and we were the runners-up in many ICC hosted tournaments. And
Yeah.
Sri Lanka falling into this particular situation, it was like very. I was devastated, and I was really disappointed to see the end result. And I really agree with you. It's because many might think it will be a very easy sort of a task to go to the qualifiers and play with these underrated or unseen 10 teams.
Mhm.
I heard there are about 10 teams. But the
Yes.
factor is it will be really difficult for our boys. It's simply because we haven't seen these particular players. And also I went through Nepalese team. I mean all the guys from Nepal, they are really enthusiastic. I mean they are really into the game,
Mhm.
and it will be absolutely a difficult task for our boys. So I personally don't like to see Sri Lanka in this particular position, but still we have to accept the bitter truth.
Yeah, I think that's the reality. I think it won't be easy, as you said. All 10 teams will be vying for a place in the World Cup, so everybody will be playing hard cricket, and we have to face the music. That there's no doubt about it. Boa, you're the man, mate. You always talk about high performances, and that what matters. In professional sport, mate. The the fact is, the New Zealand, we got to accept, Yasiru. If you don't accept, you don't have to accept, what I'm saying, but they had something like 7 or 8 players going to IPL. They literally played their second string or whatever, they're against us. And yet, into the unfortunately, Manix is not here, that where I'm going, that the mistakes we made, that I made a point prior to the show. We have a coaching staff. This is to you, mate. We are paying over $100,000 a month for this high profile the support staff we have, and they talk about all the time having got they are guided by stats, right? That they talk about, okay, we rely on stats, especially when we play away. First game, won the toss, and if you look at the past records, that the side that has played previously on that venue, the side batting first won, batting during daytime, and they found it very difficult, especially New Zealand batting under lights. Yet we won the toss, we put New Zealand into bat, then we had a disastrous second inning. We were bundled out for 70, I don't know what, a very short score. And the second game, the stats said, interestingly, the side batting second, have won the percentage majority of the games that the side that batted second that won. Yet we won the toss, batted first. And Boa, tell me, mate, you always talk about high performance and horses for courses and having right people doing the right job and making decisions at this level. Where did we go wrong, mate? How do you justify having such a high profile coaching staff guiding us? I'm not putting the entire blame on the coaching staff alone. Yes, the players should take the blame. What happened, we'll go in there, and people talk about the decline after 2016 and all that, and that we lost a whole bunch of players. And lots of people have messaged me, I will go through them very quickly. Sanjeev has written to me a very long mail, what needs to be discussed. What did you see any faults from coming from the coaching staff? You being guided your team into winning a championship in rugby. You know how important it is. You got a high profile coaching staff, and where did we go wrong, mate?
Yeah. So first of all, that's a really long question. So I'll try to give a concise, specific answer. Look, in high performance, so be it sport, business, whatever facet of life you're looking at, it's about your detail. You gotta get your detail right. So by detail, I mean, so if you look at sport, obviously the conditions, the players, the player profile you have, and what are your strengths? You really got to know what your strengths are and actually understand what some of the patterns are. So I guess what you were alluding to was some of the statistical patterns. What is the higher win probability?
Yep.
So again, if you compare your detail as in how you prepared, it's got to be consistent with those conditions, and it's got to be consistent with those patterns. So you have the player profile and you have the capabilities to win based on those patterns. So that's the real basic crux of it. So you look at that, and then you start matching your detail. Who's going to be doing what. I guess in cricket, it's about who's going to be facing who bats at what particular position, who does the bulk of the bowling, and then you prepare in a certain manner. So, in theory, if you do all these things correctly, and if you have the suitable resource or manpower in this case, there's a high probability the results should go your way. So if you take all those systems and processes and all those details and match it up against exactly what you said, you'll start seeing where the gaps are. And then you got to go and ask the question, why? What happened? So for example, if you win a toss, if you decide that you're going to bat, and the statistics say that it's going to favor the team bowling first with a 90% win ratio, you got to ask the question, okay, so why did we do that? What are the reasons? And you got to start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is a very uncomfortable process because this is going to bear a lot of truths about what your capabilities are. And, human nature is there's going to be a lot of finger pointing happening. So, but that's the only way you're going to diagnose where your problems are, because if you don't ask the question, you're not going to get the right answer. So that's just a snapshot.
I hear you, Boa. But if that's why you have so-called professionals in place to look into all those aspects, right? And you don't make mistakes, at this level of professional sport, regardless what, whether it's sports or in management or whatever. That's why you have highly paid staff professionals doing specific jobs. And if you don't get it right, what's the next course? Because I'm asking you because Rex Clementine has sent me a message, and I think he has published his article. Yasiru will talk about it. And who is going to take the blame? I think Rex's article, hang on a second, let me see that whether I can retrieve this article he had sent.
Yes, short answer again to that is, where do you draw the line for accountability, and what is your idea of accountability? For most people, accountability is all of we made a mistake. The thing is, high performance, people's livelihoods, big money, sponsorship, all that is at stake. So if you have a very honest high performance culture, the reality is, if you don't make the cut, well, then you gotta go home. You're gonna get fined. That's just how it is. And again, you asked me the question: if you have high profile people paid big bucks, if they don't make the right call, well, then I guess you've got the wrong people doing the wrong jobs. So
there you go. That's what I want to hear from you, mate. Exactly. And you know what Rex says? Nobody owing up to Sri Lanka's World Cup disaster. Yasiru, that's what he said. Yeah, that is where your disappointment is coming from. This is headlines, Sunday Island today, and who will owing to the current disaster? Yes, we won today, but I think the horse has already bolted. We have lost the plot, mate. We got to play the qualifiers, and the chances are we may not make it to this year's World Cup. Which is a disaster. I think probably that the best chance that we ever had to play in the subcontinent, we may not have it. And as Manik says, that some of the decision-making process is it's mind-boggling. Yasiru, in your view, where did we go wrong in the one days? What forced us to play in the qualifiers? Take it back. If you want to go back in the history, where did the rot start setting in?
Actually, I need to add some thoughts for this. It's because with the time, starting from 96, I think it's the best place to start this conversation. Starting from 96, the game has been really progressing, and also it has been into the next level after the T20 format started. So but the main thing that I find as fault in Sri Lanka is we haven't adapted ourselves with the other teams. I mean, we have failed to cope up with the other teams as England, because I remember there was a huge dip in the England side while Nazar Hussain was playing as well. But afterwards, afterwards they had it was a tremendous boost, and right now England is unstoppable and untouchable, in proper words. So I think it all went in the other side. In the negative side was that we didn't cope up with the strategies and also with the game. And we were stagnant, or we were staying in the same place, and still we were coming to batting. I like to speak about this as well. Those days when we were playing, we were always taught at school to be perfect inside the V. Of course, yes, that's the basic thing for a proper batter. But these days, even the small kids, they are they have this tendency to play the reverse sweeps, to get these left sweeps and all these innovative cricketing shots. And even the coaches will be coming, and they will allow these players to express themselves. So but I see in the national context that we haven't done this properly. That's the lap and that's the lag that we are having. So Charit, I feel that's a pinpoint that I want to make a note of.
Right. Goa, interestingly, Sanjeev Bernard Fernando, who had said that the where the decline started since 2016. That's partly what Yasiru says. That we haven't. That there was a. I would say that we lost a bunch of great players. Starting from Mahela to Kumar, Dilshans, all just going out of cricket. In 2016. Since then, there's a school of thought that we haven't produced enough top players who could compete at the national level, and lots of people say that's one of the reasons that that we have failed. But as you rightly said, see where England was, where England is right now. Take New Zealand where they are. How much they have progressed, right? It always happens in life. People play, people go, and then the new guys come in, and they settle in, and life goes on. I think that's what life is all about. And Well, as I was talking to some of the other coaches, my issue is, right, okay, as you rightly said, where England was and where England is, other countries have their progress comparatively, not only in cricket, maybe in rugby as well, Goa. Are we lagging behind where when it comes to technology, science of the game? Now, why I'm saying it, you take all the other test playing nations, other than us, I don't know about Pakistan, I'm not very sure about that. Every nation has a science lab, Goa. Sports lab. They invest a lot of money in that. They test their players. DNA test. We spoke about it earlier. Boy, that's not your favorite subject, but yet when it comes to injuries, those are like that old injury, recurring injuries that where it's originating from. That all sorts of things. That there are facilities in place, so it's not only technique, and there's a combination of factors. My point is, as a nation, we are only I was told that we are really training hard, Boa. Apparently, that hours and hours of training in New Zealand, that we spent a lot of time in the nets, and then a lot of time having team discussions and stats, and I don't know whether there's information overload. That island mentality as Sri Lankans, that we can't put too much information on our heads. There's a limit that we can handle. Otherwise, if there's too much information, we freeze. There's a brain freeze. I don't know whether that happened in New Zealand. I saw it, at some point that the players, they are not themselves, their mindset was not there to compete at that level. My point is, has the other countries surged ahead, and are we still stuck in the same groove that we were in 2016, although that 7-8 years down the line? I don't know. I mean, what you guys think? Have we, as a cricket playing nation, are we on par with technology and science, everything with the rest of the world? What?
So, CS, before we jump into tech, the most important thing you have to understand is, I don't know how many times I've told you this.
Just hold on a minute, mate. Can you guys hear me? Because Mangala says fix my sounds, because I'm using a brand new setup where my audio is concerned. Can you guys hear me properly?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mangal, I hope you can hear me. And I think I was like, my speaker was not in, the mic was not in place, and I adjusted it. And give me a thumbs up if you can hear me properly. Okay, go ahead.
So, CS, before we jump into tech and testing and high performance labs and so on and so forth, we actually got to get the basics of high performance right. So that's the human side of it. So you got to get the right people doing the right jobs, and you got to have people who actually want to be part of this. Because let me be very clear, high performance is not for everybody. Some days I have seen people, in my high performance squad, they go home crying because it's a tough space, a very, very difficult area. That's why it's called high performance. Less than 1% of the entire, for example, take a sport, say cricket. Less than 1% of the entire population who plays that sport will be involved in high performance, because you have to be good enough to be competing at that level and intensity, and you got to have a certain skill set. So we got to actually understand what is the skill set involved in this high performance sport. Once we do that, we have our selection policies in place, and then it's a multifaceted process where you look at your fitness, mental skills, obviously skill set to do with your particular job description, and of course it's the same with your coaching staff and administration. So once you get all that in place and you have some very clear, very simple, understandable systems and processes, you then go to the next stage, which is what you're talking about, tech, and how do we sync all this. So without getting the first part of the equation right, there's no real point in going and spending all this money, because all you're going to do is look really stupid by investing in all this high tech, and all it will do is make your losses look pretty ridiculous. And just answering another question you're talking about, where supposedly a team is training very, very hard. It doesn't matter whether you train very, very hard. If you train the wrong way, or you train in the wrong approach, if you train the wrong content, you get the wrong detail, all it will do is make your mistakes happen that much faster.
Excellent point, Boa. Excellent point. Yeah, man.
So what you have to do is you've got to go and inspect what your expectations or what your outcomes are. And then you got to plan your processes and systems on how you are going to prepare so that you get the outcome or the result you want. And again, you've got to really strip it right back down to the very basic. It doesn't really matter what sport it is. The fundamental, the pillars of success stay the same. So once you really master that, and you'll find that most of the really consistent high performance teams, the tech, the biotech, all the analysis is only a very small part of this big picture. So trying to reverse the pyramid. So the reason I say it's a pyramid. So imagine the tech sits right at the top, and all the nutrition and all the little bits and pieces. The fundamentals, the basics of what I just told you, that you need to get the systems and processes in place. If you don't get that right, sure, we might win the odd game like what happened today in Park. And then all of a sudden, what that will do is, because you get this big euphoria and you're on a high, all it does is paper over these really big cracks in the system. And then you roll on to your next assignment. Things don't go right, and then the criticism starts again. So it's this either feast or famine sort of thing. And to me, that's not high performance. That's just hot luck. And, you're just kind of here nor neither there.
Interesting point, Boa, that you brought up. I remember an old saying that Bruce Lee used to say, that he won't fear a guy who has all the tricks, in his bag, but he would fear a guy who would practice 10,000 kicks. That practice makes you perfect. But as you rightly said, if you force guys in training, and if you are not enjoying your practice sessions, or you are not on cue, I don't know whether you guys have seen this video that is doing the circles, Yasiru, that Sri Lanka. Well, we are training in one of the universities, that is somewhere in New Zealand, and that our guys are getting beaten by a bunch of New Zealand kids, not even top professional cricketers, that. So, as you rightly said, Boa, you may be practicing 4 to 5 hours, but if you are not doing, you're working on your weaknesses, and that you're not engaging in the right technique, as Yasim said, that no point reverse sweeping. Probably your chances of reverse sweeping in New Zealand is 0, compared to, you rightly said, the playing in the V, which we haven't done. We on a wicket that is there's bounce pace, and we are trying to go across the line. Some of the things that we notice. Yasiru, let me put it this way, in your view, what I said, there's perhaps people don't talk about it. When it comes to technology and science, regardless cricket, are we lacking behind compared to other countries, when it comes to technology?
I can agree, and also I will not agree with the statement. It's because we can't say that we do not have the technology, and also we can't. Also England and Australia, also New Zealand, they are having much more better facilities than our boys. That's also we need to admit. But Charit, the worrying part, I couldn't tell this earlier. There's another worrying point is once you are in the national context. So as a coach, you know it very well. As a past cricketer, you know it absolutely well, more than all of us. Simply once a cricketer steps into the national level, there's nothing to make in him. So the coach can guide him and also fine tune him. But in the recent past, I have seen it's the very basics are not happening properly, especially running between the wickets. We saw some absolute disgraceful runouts. But coming into today's game, Charit, I noticed the calls were very loud, especially from KGP. That was I was really happy to see that, because in the recent past, I have seen even batters, while they were running between the wickets, they were almost collided with each other. And also even the captain was involved in a few of these runouts. So Charit, I feel with the technology, coming back to the question, with the technology, and also like we definitely need to look onto our basics, because like I think our players are like lacking the basics once they step into the national level.
Moa, you believe that that our players lack the basics at national level to perform with the best in the world?
So, so that's a developmental issue. So, regardless of the sport, if there's a lack of basics, what that tells me is that the pathway does not necessarily inspect the right skill set required, and people just get by just based on X factor and talent. And the coaches and selectors are probably looking at the best of what they have, as opposed to being able to pick the right skill set. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. So there's another. Sanjeev again has said that both you guys can contribute. That is that a result of a weak domestic structure? Is it because that our school standards have dropped, or have we that because the game is highly commercialized, that you are looking at the people trying to make a quick buck, but not the bigger picture? And then my point is, how come now look at the amount of depth New Zealand got. Every time they bring in a new player, they perform at the highest level, but whereas that our guys don't do the same thing, that you don't perform when an opportunity is given. And also it's very, we are pointing fingers at the coaching staff. If you really look at it, the side that played today, they have been around for a long time, Noah. It's that the same side.
Yes, if I can interject. So what you're talking about is long-term stuff. So every sport, my view is we've got to have like a long-term plan. It's what we're talking a decade. So we've got to pick, say, 2025 to 2035, and then we got to put some fundamental pillars in place on what are some of the very basic outcomes we want within these 10 years, and year by year, how we're going to plan this, and how is it going to affect the community or grassroots of the sport, as well as the high performance, and how do the two sectors, that's the grassroots of the community sports, that's the schools, clubs, how do they connect, and how do we create a pathway so that we create players who have the skill set which we can sharpen? Because you got to understand, when you get to high performance, if you have to start teaching players basics, there's something seriously wrong with your system. Therefore, you got to go back and inspect and diagnose where the issues are, and you got to come up with a plan where you can actually develop the skill set you need. So that would mean that you've got to dial back what you're doing at high performance now and scale back your plans in the short term. So that would mean you're going to have to take a financial hit. So what I'm saying is that, for example, you're playing in the top tier, you might have to say voluntarily we're going to take a year off and play one tier below, so that we can actually get to a competitive level and we can get some confidence around it. And that has to reflect on the changes you're going to make in your grassroots or feeder system. Because if you don't make any changes, and if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, ain't going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Yeah, it's very right that what you're talking about. Ricky, good to have you on the show, man. It's all down to confidence levels. When we are doing well, we are at a different level. When we are losing, we are good as dead. When we start a series well, we continue the momentum. When we start a series early, wow. That's the game. This game is all about confidence. I know that, it's very difficult. I knew when we lost the first test, the last ball, that the writing is on the ball, because, we are a team that, we play on momentum. We talk about in professional sport that, every team requires momentum, and, that then once you lose it, especially your first game, and it's very difficult to rise up and, just to face with the what is required of a player, because, your mind is not there. But Yasiru, you said that, you're talking about some of the basic errors that we made, and that's a good point that Manik's made. Last 3 one-days, we got, I think twice we were all out for 70, and at the next last inning we got 150. and then come to 2020 and we score 196 runs. Where, that's very mind-boggling. Why are we struggling when it comes to the 50-over format? Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, that out of the last 25 games we have played overseas, interesting stat that we have won only one series or whatever overseas, which is not good enough, I guess. So I mean, with that kind of poor record, obviously, we are not good enough to get automatic qualification into the World Cup. I don't know, Yasir. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, Sharit, we deserve to play that qualifying round with the performance. But I think what I saw was like our guys, whoever the players are, they fail to identify the format, because like sometimes they go into the middle in a test match and they'll try to play it as a 50-over match. And also coming to the 50-over matches, they will try to make it a T20. So like I was very shocked to see, if I'm not mistaken, on the third ODI, Dasun Shanaka's dismissal. It's because like he had 19 good overs left, and because he was dismissed in the 31st over. And at that particular moment, what initially he should have done was to stay in the wicket and to rotate the strike. And also another key factor, especially I'm pointing on our batting department more than the bowling department, is because like always our guys are, I mean, they always try to go for the glory shot or the boundary rather than keeping the rotation of the strike. So the fact, I mean, like they have really failed to understand the fundamental. I mean, like they will stuck in one place and they will fail to rotate the strike, and automatically what happens is there will be a scoreboard pressure building up when that will happen. Then they will straight away go for a big shot and play a very rash or a loose shot and just throw out their wicket. So I actually was so disappointed to see this from Dasun Shanaka, because easily we would have got to some sort of a position if our players were much more responsible. So I think basically what I feel is like our players, they still fail to understand the format they are playing and also the duty or the role that they need to play in the side. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, what you're talking about, the options, mate. One of the problems we have, that most of our guys, this is from a coaching point of view, Boa, that we have a scenario, either block or slog. It's like driving a car. What I think Yasiru is trying to say, you got to adapt to situations. You can't, just either block or slog. That it's like driving a car. You can't go on the first gear all the time or on the top gear. So there are two other gears. You shift in between second and the third. We don't rotate the strike, and our poor options that we take sometimes that that the scoreboard pressure comes along when you are in that frame of mind. Either you block or you slog, and you don't rotate the strike. Then you number of dot balls that we face, and I'm sure that in the team meetings they discuss and they have a batting plan. And what percentage of the dot balls that they are going to play in a game. But we never, I mean, the sides that are winning, they are always that, they keep that, you have a plan, say you are going to play less than 20% of, dot balls. But you can't go on to win like, playing 30 or 40% of dot balls. Then what happens, the scoreboard pressure, and you throw your wicket. But all that is that, with experience and the right technique, that's why you are playing the game at the highest level. And we have the same side, we have, who's coming in. Today we brought back Kusal Janit Pereira into the squad. And we keep going back, you can see that Angelo Matthews and these guys, the older guys, are still performing better than some of the younger blokes who have come into the side. So are we losing talent, or is it something wrong with the selection process? And also, Boa, the point, what I said that, see the number of A-team matches that we are playing. Hardly enough, we are playing basically maybe maximum one tour for a year, whereas a country like India invests so much money in the emerging players. They play a minimum of 3 to 4 tours, so that gives them exposure, playing at the highest level. Whereas we are spending over $100,000 for a month on the coaching staff. Can we invest little bit of money in that technology science, what I'm saying is give bit more exposure to the upcoming players. Will that help Sri Lanka cricket in the long run, Boa? That's saying that I feel we are just recycling the same old players that, as Yasiru says, it's not forthcoming. I don't know. I mean, am I right?
No,
do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a combination of everything. And what you're talking about is restructure and reform. But if you're going to do that, you've got to make the right reforms and you've got to restructure to the right size. If you're going to spend 100K on a person, you have to make sure that that particular person is clearly overseeing the right detail and has the right skill set. What this tells me is that neither is sort of happening to the level it should. And of course, as far as talent not being available, then you got to go back into your system and see, what's going on. You got to diagnose where the problems are. And you're right. You need to be the emerging teams, A teams, whatever, the provincial structure, the franchise, whatever that cricket is. The pathway has to be vibrant. There has to be a lot of options, and the talent scouting happening, etc., moving forward. It's got to be the right activity. So all this tells me that this is a real big mumbo jumbo, hodgepodge mess. And we are more so hedging our bets on X Factor, who can turn up on the day. And if, a little bit of luck goes their way, that is camouflage for thinking that we're on the right track. Whereas when things don't necessarily go here, which more often than not is the case, we're back to square one. So again, it comes down to skill set, detail. And we've just got to go back and look at the very fundamentals, really strip everything back. And one other thing I have to say is, in the subcontinent and in the island folk culture, there's this myth. It's a very it's a faulty thought process that if you throw enough money at a problem, you will get a solution. Let me be the first to tell you. Having won a premiership here in Auckland in the most competitive competition in New Zealand, in rugby, we had the smallest, least budget. And what we did was we looked at a 4-year program where we developed the most fundamental basic skill sets, which developed to a very credible high performance skill set. But that didn't necessarily take money, it just took a slightly different thought pattern. And of course, we are the right people in the place. So I just need to stress that point. Money alone is not going to solve every problem that you face in high performance.
Well said, but Ravi says, Noah, please elaborate on mindset games. I'm not very sure what Ravi meant. Do you know what he's talking about, Bo?
I'm assuming mindset is the psychology of winning. So, of course, mindset is a very important thing. And, in high performance, like, for example, with my group of players, I spend about 20% of our training as a whole on sharpening our mental skills. Because how many times think about it. Since we're kids, we grew up playing sport. There's this expectation that when it comes to the crunch moment, of course, we work a lot as coaches and as players. We get coached on our physical or the physiological skill set. But how often have you actually taken a block of time in a structured manner and taken players through a psychological training session? It's probably next to nothing. So again, you just need to understand in the high performance environment, how much time do you need to allocate to mental skills. So I think that's probably what Ravi's alluding to.
Yeah, what you're saying is, mate, it's very, very true. What you're saying is you can take a horse to the water, but you can't get the horse to drink it. So you need, the mindset has to be a mindset of the players. It got to be right. Otherwise, that hours and hours of training and all that information that you put into their brains will end up in a brain freeze. That's we can clearly see. It's just no point that the management trying to click, tick all the boxes and showing that they are doing their job. If the outcome, the players, on the field, and if they are underperforming, there's something wrong somewhere. So we need to address that in Sri Lanka cricket. Well, what we're saying is no point spending all that money, having all these top coaches, with like a high-profile support staff in the team, but the team is not delivering. So we need to look into it. Can the boys comprehend all that information coming into them, whether they are performing? Yes, sir, if you are not agreeing, tell me that you don't agree. As Ricky Sim says, our players have the ability and talent as any other player in the world, but when it comes to reading the game, when and how adjust to situations, our players are poor. So that's that's what I'm saying. So this bunch of guys been playing together for over a number of years, and if they're not going to perform now, and probably some of these guys are at the end of their they're all reaching 26 years, 27 years old, and if you're not going to find your niche, I can't see them, that we are going any further in this game. I don't know whether you agree or not. Yasiru.
Yeah, that's also true. I agree with you on that aspect as well. And also, one more thing I just wanted to share. I actually couldn't tell that earlier. When you take Wanindu Hasaranga, I'm just dragging Wanindu Hasaranga as an example. Now, Wanindu is the rank 1 T20 bowler, but he terribly failed to perform in the 50-over format. It's simply because I was really digging into this, and I was analyzing, and I was thinking why this guy can't perform when it comes to the shorter format.
Okay.
If he can perform so well inside 4 overs in a 2020, but why can't he perform in the 50-over thing when he's having 10 or more, 10 overs with him? I think as a cricketer and also as a player, what I have seen the mistake was those days, Muthaiya Muralidharan, always he was trying to progress himself. Always he tried to innovate some new thing, new strategy. But I currently with the players, because I know many of the players personally as well. So what I see is once they are, once they are confident about their position or their place in the national side, it will be the biggest comfort zone for them. Good performance in 5-6 matches, they know, okay, I have already cemented my place in the national team. That's it. So from there onwards, they are, their hard work or their game or their aggression will really go down. So I think that's the point. I know even Wanindu is not trying anything new, to try something new, because we know with the modern technology, what we were speaking, most of the countries, they have already analyzed Wanindu Hasaranga. And what he needs to do is he needs to find something new to mix his skills, because he's a very talented and a bright prospect where we can take a good use of him. But still, he's not working on. So I feel and I see that mindset is with our players. So I think that should be shortened, and also a much more competitiveness should be added in the local context as well. I think you guys agree with me.
Yeah, that's a good point. What you're saying is that the life is all about you evolve. More correct me if I'm wrong. That regardless whether it's cricket or in your professional career, you always trying to evolve. That's the human nature. And if you are saturated, if you are stuck in a groove, and if you have not evolved, other sides are going to analyze you, and they are going to figure you out, and you're not going to perform. That's simple as that. I think every individual in life, we got to look for new things. That for an example, when we started this chat show, going back, during COVID time, we struggled with our softwares, that we tried new things. And Yasiru, to tell you, today for the first time, I told you guys I'm trying new hardware and to see how it works. I don't know whether it works well, at the other end, but it's all about adding new tricks to your game. You are trying to up your game, and if you are not upping your game, it's going to be disaster. So that's one of the points I'm talking about. Have we evolved from 2016 up to now? What we're saying is, no, we have not. So that's the problem. So we need to up our game. That always we look for that 1%, and we are talking about raising the bar, which has not happened. And going back to what Yasiru said, Boa, what makes a great player? Just very, very briefly, after the match, I heard Mitchell talking about, and the passion playing for the country, for great players to turn up year after year, still perform at the highest level. What motivates them, Boa?
So I'm going to touch on a point which in the last couple of years I've been working with a few top guys. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention the sport. It's what I call AIGE. I'll say it again. AIGE. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? And we're talking about, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about guys who are at the top of their game. But in their mind, they have this constant desire and they ask themselves, am I good enough? And they have this sense of slight inadequacy. And that motivates them to push them to even greater heights. So at the very highest level, and when you're right at the top of the mountain, when you're constantly thinking, what do I need to do to evolve my game to the next level? And when you're constantly doing that, you start creating and you start building some seriously innovative skills, and that gives you that little edge. And once you constantly, with some of these guys, I have to say, they've got long-term contracts with a certain sporting body, making 6-7 figures very comfortably. But in their head, it's a daily renewing contract with their performance. Let me say that again. In their headspace, it's a daily renewing contract in their headspace. They're always thinking, what do I need to do to get better? And once you start getting into this very uncomfortable comfort zone, where you're comfortable at being uncomfortable, you're always asking yourself, what can I teach myself to be better? And that's a really, really dangerous proposition you're dealing with, because you bring to the table an incredible skill set, and once you start going through that detail and performing with that skill set, it's just mind-blowing, because it just completely blows the competition out of the water. Now that takes a very special type of person, because it's not easy. It's not for everybody. And just connecting to what Yasiru was saying, where people are just comfortable once they've achieved a certain success, and they're more than happy to sit there. If you really want to evolve your game, because in sport, in the modern day, what got you there yesterday is not going to get you there today or tomorrow. So you've got to constantly evolve. So short answer to your question, have we evolved since, 2016? Clearly, based on the results, the answer is a big fat no.
No. Interesting, Boa. What's that term you said? AIG. What was it? Say that again.
It's a little acronym I have come up with for some of my athletes.
Yeah.
AIGE. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? If you really want to take it to the next level, you go AIGT. Am I good enough today?
Interesting.
Today. If the answer is if there's a slight hesitation and say no, you go back and inspect your skill set. You go back and inspect what lies ahead, and you go back and figure out what your strategy is to be good enough, and then you go work on that skill set.
Well said, man. I think that's what Ravi was talking about. The mindset. That's the question that I asked. So it doesn't matter. We are going back to Yasiru. There's a point that that I made and when Boa made. It's no point. You can practice all day long if you are doing, if you keep on doing the wrong things. So it has to be in harmony, your mind, body, and soul, Boa. Is that right? That's what you're saying, isn't it? Once you are improving your set of skills, you need to improve your mindset as well in order to survive at the highest level. I'm not too sure whether we are, as a whole, Sri Lanka cricket, and everyone, all of us who are involved in the game, we are looking at it, the development of the players, the mindset to perform at the highest level, which can be, it's a very good point. And as Hatem says, no use showing 6 billion profit if you are not investing in an A-team and emerging tours. Absolutely, mate. It's not only profit, that that no point having high profile support staff, if you are not channeling your money in the right directions, then this is going to be the end results, which is very, very, which is true. And mate, guys, I'm sorry, the way the messages are coming, probably I can't keep up, with all the messages. I try and accommodate, as much as I can, that's, it's good to have you guys, good to have you guys, on show and, contributing. It's a positive fact. It keeps us going. Thanks, Aruna, always, for your participation, and Well said, Boa, passion to win. Yasiru, is that what you're saying? That you think our guys lack the passion to win? Is that what you're saying?
Not that actually. I mean, like, I think it's coming into the national context. I think once they are cemented their place, or like once they know, okay, I'm a national player representing Sri Lanka, from there onwards, I think that energy, that aggression that we can see from the Indians and Pakistanis, I feel that our boys are a bit lethargic. I mean, like, they feel so comfortable. I mean, like, they are living in a very comfort zone, or like they are living in their own bubble, not trying to be that X factor to go and win this game for the country, or like go and win this game for the team. I mean, like, I haven't seen that energy in the recent past, probably after 2016. But earlier, there were individuals straight away standing out of nowhere, pulling out games from nowhere. But in the recent past, I'm sad that I haven't seen that. It's not that we can't just point our fingers to the players alone. I mean, like, this mindset, as we were discussing, a mindset should be, nurtured starting from their school days, not to be a team player rather than being for themselves, or being a selfish player. So I think if these things can be fine-tuned, I hope the future would be much more better than where we are right now.
You get it? Boa. We know that we talk of All Blacks. I think the passion, their passion for rugby, the pride to play for their country. Does that attitude, filters into the cricket as well? I can see that, the passion in those, Kiwis to play for the country, the pride that they have representing, bringing smiles to their spectators, and every time they are given an opportunity to perform at the highest level. Where does that motivation come, Boa? Now this is very interesting. Like now, Aruna Samaraju has said, you don't see complacency in some of these foreign players, regardless cricket, football, rugby. Every time they play for their nation, they play with pride. Are we lacking that, Boa?
Look, I can't give you a straight answer to the question, because that has, the team has to have some honesty amongst themselves, and actually have some honesty to the people paying their wages. What I can tell you is how players get remunerated. If you're in a spot of bother like what you're talking about now, we've got to really strip it back and get away from these, comfortable contracts. I'm a firm believer of performance-based pay. I'll give you a really good example. If you go to PETA, and if you have a look at some of those porters who work on the side of the streets with those carts, bottom line is, if they don't work, and they have to
don't get paid.
Yeah, they don't get paid. That's it. And if they do a solid day's work, they make some serious coin, make some really serious money. So I think we've really got to go back to those rudimentary contracts, and until we start actually creating a high performance culture where people are willing to work for what they get remunerated, we won't know the answer to this question. It's very easy to say either way. Yes, they have. No, they don't. But until we actually throw them into a situation where it's do or die, we won't actually know the honest, truthful answer, because everything will start unraveling. Because once you are thrown into a situation like that, it's not for everybody. There'll be people who say, no, I don't want this, and they'll go off and start playing either franchise or licensed cricket. But there'll be a few people saying, you know what, yeah, bring it on. I will prove once and for all that I want this. So I think we're going to have to carry out some kind of social experiment like this. And the reason I say this, and this is quite a radical way of looking at it, when the rut is so bad, you've got to have a process of elimination. Unless you do that, you're not going to find out who actually really wants it that bad. So I hope that gives some context to the question.
It does. Yasiru, you claim that it's a serious statement you made. You said some players personally, and you feel deep down that players are not giving 100%. Now that's a serious statement, mate. Now that is what Boa is talking about. Do you seriously think that the players are if the players are not giving 100% at national level, and there's no other level that they can give 100%, and it's if they are not willing to give 100%, they are not going to give even 50% at domestic level, that we are going to have problems. That's what people are talking about. The domestic cricket is poor, and it's getting weaker by the day. Imagine if your mindset is such to perform at the highest level, you're not going to perform at a lower level. That's a serious statement. Yes. Do you seriously think that the players lack motivation to perform at the highest level?
Absolutely, yes. Because
wow,
when I meet players, I mean, like, we happen to speak about the sport, about all these other life activities, how they have this balance, and I always try to help certain individuals as well. I'm not going to say the names anyhow, but recently I met a player, and he's in his early 30s, and he was a prominent player in the side as well. And I asked, look, mates, what's going on now? Why aren't you performing well, or what's going on with you? Whether just to figure out whether it was something psychology, or whether this guy needed some sort of a help. The answer was so ridiculous, and I felt really shocked after hearing that, because even since when we were playing, we had this dying passion to represent the nation if there was the slightest possibility. So this guy, out of the blue, he just said, okay, I have made up my buck, so I'm much more comfortable. So I have my bank accounts are good, so I can have a proper life. So that's it. He calls me Ayya. That's it, Ayya. So I'm comfortable. If I get a chance, let's see. But if not, let me chill. So I think this was one of the most shocking moments that I have faced with a cricketer who's still in the game. So I think that was a major point where I understood, once the players cement their places, or they have a proper bank account, they are much more comfortable, and they will always try to stay away just to have that comfortable life. So I mean, if we want, or if we expect Sri Lankan cricket to go up, we definitely need to make players with the mindset of Virat Kohli. I'm not wanting all the players to be like Virat Kohli, but we need that mindset. Virat Kohli might be he's one of the most richest players. MS Dhoni is one of the richest, but still, always they are so focused, and always they want to be the better person in each coming day. So I think, Charit, that with responsibility, I'm saying, I have come across certain individuals like this. So this is the mindset which has been developing. So definitely the administration and also the management needs to look upon this. And also, I am with Boa. Definitely we need to go towards, once it comes to the pay, it should be performance basis.
Wow, Boa. I think it's very obvious what Yasir is saying. I mean, if that is the attitude or the mindset of the cricketers, to be in a comfort zone, once their places are cemented in the team, we are not going to see any improvement, and it has to be a performance-based contract, and there is no doubt about it. If someone listening out there, any responsible journalist, and which Yasuru, your job as well, next time when you go on air, when you talk, in your whatever the platforms, the forums, if that's the way forward, no, we definitely have to do that, mate. Which is perhaps it's that the player contracts, I don't know how the player their player, what do you call, the association is going to look at it, that you are deploying players of an annual contract, perhaps the way forward, and keep it 100% performance based. Yeah.
Let me interject here. See, this is the other problem I have. When people in charge of running a high performance organization, you have to make some really tough decisions.
Yeah.
Trying to allow this whole woke culture of players, say and do everything, and give them cuddles and hugs. I mean, this is what I keep going back to. This is high performance. It's not recreational performance. Yeah, in recreational performance, if you lose a game, it's okay. You can have a drink, you can go home, life goes on. In high performance, if you lose a high intensity game, we're talking about livelihoods, sponsorships, and in some cases, people lose their homes. it turns violent. In supporter bases. That's how serious this is. So I'm just giving you examples. I'm not going to go into names of particular sports. So that is the reality of it. Now, I just feel that from an administrative point of view, and this is an area I have a lot of experience in managing high performance athletes. You've got to make some very, very difficult calls. The whole idea of high performance is to deliver a certain level of performance very few can deliver and the entire world aspires to. Now, to do that, you have to resort sometimes to extreme methods so that you push your human boundaries, both physically and mentally. So it's not for everybody. So I think you've got to go back to the fundamentals where there need to be some very strict guidelines. And you can't let players dictate what they want, because I know exactly what the players will want. They'll want lots of money for the least amount of work and sit on their backside and get paid for the rest of their life. Sure, that's what most people would aspire to. But in high performance, you have to earn every dollar. The day that hunger stops, performance just starts to decline. I'll give a really good example is there's an MMA fighter, a world famous MMA athlete, Conor McGregor. And he was at the top of his game. He was one of the most wealthiest athletes to walk the planet. When you come to a certain point where you have enough wealth, you lose that edge. You lose that edge. It's like in that Bruce Lee movie, Enter the Dragon, they feed you well so that there's kind of softening you for the kill. Because there's always someone out there who's hungrier. There's always someone who wants to knock you off that perch. So the reality is, if you want to be a serious high-performance athlete, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, and you need to be willing to push yourself to those dark places that most people can't even imagine. I know that sounds difficult. It is. So let me say that again. It is a very, very difficult thing to do, high performance, to be good at high performance. But that's why it's called high performance, and only a very few of us would ever be able to fit into that space and consistently do well.
True, we all know what happened to the Irishman. Being complacent. He got his bloody ass beaten. From in MMA. That's a very good example. As Aruna says that no fire in the belly. What you're saying, Boa? We have our population? 25 million people in this country, out of which only 11 guys get selected to play for the country, and that's, I think, it's a massive opportunity. I think if you go back and if you look at our history, I think so far we have produced only about 160, 170 test cricketers out of 25 million people. So you become a very special person. You're not an average person. To wear the lion cap, you got that baggy cap, you got to wear with pride. And if any player hasn't got that, the desire to play for the country, I don't think, to begin with, to be in the side. So I think we need to do a very quick assessment. That is where the high performance guys come in. See how mentally he spoke about Virat Kohli. Every time he goes out, the passion, regardless, irrespective, how much money, how wealthy he is, but the passion to wear that, the Indian cap and to represent the nation, and probably that lacks in our players. So that's we have identified that perhaps the biggest problem that we have. It's not the technique, it's not that what we do, but the lack of hunger to perform at the highest level. And Yasiru, let me put you in a spot again, mate. Now, what you're saying is, it sounds pretty disheartening and pretty deadly to me. What are our chances of qualifying for the World Cup with this kind of attitude? You reckon the players will have that hunger to go into a qualifying and to a qualifying round and get into the World Cup?
Maybe 50-50. It's because, like as I said at the beginning, The qualifying round, a normal guy might think it might be very easy, but with this particular mindset and also with this amount of attitude, I have my thoughts. It can be 50-50.
Boy,
It can be like very disappointing.
Boy, tell us, mate, for a nation, right? It's like, imagine if All Blacks qualified to play in the World Cup. What can that do to the sport if you don't qualify, mate? In your view?
Well, with that particular example, I don't think anyone can even think of that situation. That would be an absolute disaster. It would be a day of national mourning. Rugby is the national sport here. I mean, I've lived all my adult life here. So I've been part of the system, part of the coaching system, also with my club. That would be unthinkable. That would be like Armageddon. But look, without sort of digressing the conversation, just connecting with what Yasiru was saying, I guess it really comes down to anyone at high performance level. They've really got to earn the right to represent their country. Right? And that right, or the rite of passage, has to be so difficult that they actually understand that going through that passage is not for everybody. And it's a real privilege. Privilege is pressure, and pressure is privilege. That's why when the 11 are playing, the entire nation stops and freezes and glues their eyes on a TV screen or now a mobile phone. So that's the privilege, and with that privilege comes the pressure. So you have to actually go through a very difficult path to get there, and then you got to constantly reflect back and think, this is what it took for me to get there, and this is what it's going to take for me to stay there. And that has to be even harder than the path you took to get there. And once you set all this in place, and when you have the right people administering this and constantly evaluating what that path is and what you need to stay there, I think we will get some sense of stability. But until then, I just feel that we're just throwing punches in the dark, hoping that one of these punches will connect. And when it does, everyone gets all euphoric, like what happened today at Eden Park. In fact, I didn't go for the game. I went and dropped my kids. I played taxi driver. And, I was, of course, over the moon. Kids are like, oh, yeah, these guys won. But the reality is that tends to cover or paper the cracks, which tend to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And because you're so used to throwing punches in the dark, and when one connects, boom, you get a knockout.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of disguises that, whatever you want to call it. You can call it sorrow, disgust, anger, whatever those feelings are. Because, as you know, the mood of the nation depends on what a cricket team does or doesn't. So it's a very interesting situation, and I just hope because I'm looking at this purely from a high performance manager, high performance coach, mentor perspective, and this is how I set my guys up so that they constantly keep pushing themselves to find how much they can push themselves.
Interesting. Yasiru, let me ask you, mate. In case the unthinkable happens, what impact that will have? It's just not the cricketers alone. That when you talk of BOA, like national sport, people don't realize how many make a living out of cricket. That's from the journalists and the commentators and support staff, coaches at domestic level. That can have a massive impact. The overall, the people don't realize that not qualifying or playing in a World Cup. Forget about the finance part of it. I mean, we get hammered. You don't play in the ICC, we don't get paid. Simple as that. ICC is not going to give you money if you're not playing in a World Cup, mate. They are just not going to. You're going to lose a massive amount of revenue if you don't qualify, and that's one of the negative aspects. So that will reflect on the domestic structure because they ended the SLC, and that they will not be able to continue pay, and pass that money down the line, because if you lose your revenue, that's life, so there's a huge danger. I think the message that we need to get across to the national team, that we are going to play the qualifiers, right? There is no question that we have to get out of the places that are up for grabs. We need to grab one, either hook or by crook. There is no other option. We can't just go play qualifiers for the sake of playing. We need to play in order to qualify. Otherwise, whoever who contributed to this debacle has to be taken to task more. Simple as that. I think the pressure has to come from everyone. Should be responsible, from the players to the management. Past cricketers like us, who had a hand in cricket. I think we are all responsible. If that happens, I think, to me, that could spell disaster to Sri Lanka cricket. What are your thoughts, Yasiru?
Definitely, Sharit. It can actually kill the sport as well in Sri Lanka. As you say, we all get this infrastructure to everything. It's because the amount that we are being pumped from the ICC, as far as my knowledge, because I know less about the administrating side. So if we won't, if we'll be thrown out of the ICC events, I mean we'll be fallen back to square one. And all the hard work, people like you, Aravind De Silva, Arjuna, to Bandula, to everyone, all these tremendous efforts made by numerous men will be washed off. So it'll be a big question, where can we start again, and when we'll be able to come back to the position that we are. So there should be a strong message given to the national team, as well as the supporting staff, the coaching staff, to everyone, just to look down, focus, and execute. There's no other way. There's no easy way. We should go in that hard way with our noses up. There's no other way.
Well, before we have been talking for 1 hour. Plati here didn't realize that we were on air for 1 hour 15 minutes, mate. We have spoken. Boa, in this situation, you as a top high performance man, what would be your advice? How would from where do we go from here, SLC? What do we do?
I think we've got to start with the personnel. That's your players, your coaches, administrators, because we're looking at a very small percentage of the population of the people playing the sport and administering the sport. And of course, you've got to look at maybe the couple of tiers down, the feeder system. And you come with you look at a group of maybe 40 to 45 personnel, then really focus your efforts on that. You've got to, I think, restructure the contracts, how people get remunerated. It's got to be performance-based. And we've got to set some very clear targets. They've got to be measured, they've got to be quantifiable, because if you don't really have a target, you don't know whether you're going to be successful or not. And then you've got to start really scaling back the skill sets required, and then you start working on those, and then you look at quantified training methods, and like I said, the psychological skill side of it. So you got to really come up with a really very, very basic plan and work hard on these skills. Now the other side of it is the administrative side of it. And I think you need people who actually understand what high performance sport is and what professional sport is. I have serious doubts whether the people administering the sport actually understand what professionalism is and what high performance is. Now, I'll give you a really good example. Now, whenever a game is cut short, let's say, for example, there's 6 hours broadcast time and it finishes in 4 hours, that means the sponsors lose out on 2 hours advertising, right? And the venue, the drinks, the beers, the food. And if you look at, say, the third world, let's really strip down the economy to the very basic fact. People at a city center watching on a television, the economy around it, people selling drinks, the guy selling peanuts, his revenue goes down. So it's this domino effect. If we consistently perform well, everything around it actually flourishes. It's really important that people understand how much is actually riding on this. And that's why I said we've got to come up with a process where people actually understand the privilege they have been handed. But that has to be earned. So there's no one real fix to this. I think there has to be some real serious diagnostics, some serious soul searching. You got to look yourself in the mirror. There's some honest conversations have to happen. A lot of people might have to actually step down willingly. If they don't, then they need to be given the Spanish archer, which they call firing people. Spanish archer, when you pull the bow and the archers. Yep. And you've just got to really, I think you've got to downsize and right size. I think there's just far too much. I mean, I've seen this, The island folk mentality is just this big entourage. You're carrying your excess package from airport to airport. All that crap has to stop. You really strip everything down to the bare basics. And then once you get really good at it, you go to the next level. And then when you earn the right to carry all that excess baggage, maybe then just you will start putting some, consistent results on the way. Until then, you just got to really look at what you're doing.
Well said, Matt. It's Hatem, good to have you on the show, Matt. As always, that it's a great pleasure to have you. If you go into the qualifiers overconfident as a team, we are done. Yeah, Scotland, Netherlands, Zimbabwe are not going to be pushovers in a World Cup qualifier. No team is going to be pushovers, because as I think we clearly mentioned that everybody, the stakes are high. Everyone's playing for a place in the World Cup. It's a great privilege you talk about, being there. It's a World Cup. At the end of the day, World Cups don't happen every day. An absolute privilege to be a part of a World Cup, either as a player or support staff or whatever. And people should have that pride in them. And if you don't, as a nation, we are going to lose out. So that's very, very important. Where we stand, people understand and realize that the situation that we are faced with, and put our minds and heads together and make sure that we get over this hurdle. And I think more to add a little more into it, it's just not the players. We need to get our management right. It's that Yasiru spoke about players being complacent. So you got to ask the question from some of the guys who are running cricket today, how committed some of these guys are, that the service that they are doing to Sri Lanka, are they really in there because that they care for cricket, or for any other reason? I think how I see it. I hope I will not get into trouble for saying this. That I always say the truth. Some of these administrative places, Boa, they are supposed to be honorable jobs, honorary posts. But think back to see whether how many are doing an honorary job. I have absolutely no issue professionals getting paid. Yes, I think I don't expect people to work for nothing. If you are good in any craft or any trade, you got to be remunerated. That's fine. But the guys who are doing an honorary job have to do an honorable job. I don't know whether that's happening. So that, I have a feeling, is filtering down to that complacency Yasur was talking about. People think, listen, the guys at the top are not bothered. Why should we bother?
So serious. You talk about professionals getting remunerated. So the key word is professional. If you're not professional, then
don't be there.
Remunerated. Simple as that. So that's why you got to get the right crew on board. You got to get the right crew. You got to get the right people you trust. And you got to, once you get the right crew, people go above and beyond what their job description is. And, everyone starts kind of doing things for everyone else. They don't think about themselves. But that's a very different culture. I mean, I've experienced that in a number of different settings. The reason I tell you that is I think, to me, that is real high performance culture, because because you have to understand, high performance, there's a very high cost when it comes to winning. Let me say that again. There's a very high cost. It means you have to give up your family time, your personal time, your hobbies, all that stuff you do on Instagram and all that kind of nonsense. All that kind of has to take a back seat. And you have to actually think about a higher cause than yourself. Because since we were kids, all we've been taught about in our education system and the world out there is just focus on yourself. Me, me, me. But if you're talking a serious high performance environment, you sacrifice the me for the we. I'll say it again. Sacrifice the me for the we. But I think based on what you guys are saying, we've got a bit of a road to go down before we get to that stage.
I hope it will not be an impossible uphill task, and I hope things will fall in place and people will realize the gravity of the situation and address it appropriately and do the right thing. Otherwise, we won't have anything to we won't have much to talk about. We'll probably talking about other things other than cricket very soon. That's how I see it, as simple as that. And how precariously we are placed at the moment, that's the true reality. Okay, Hasiru, before we say bye to you, mate, and your thoughts, just parting thoughts, what do you say? Now, don't tell me that you're praying for Sri Lanka cricket, because we don't believe in praying. The praying doesn't work. We all have realized that though some believe in prayers, the prayers don't work in the middle. We need to look at other things, how we are going to win. What do you think?
Finally, I mean, like, we need to be innovative. I mean, the coaching staff to the supporting staff to the captain to the players to the squads to Sri Lanka A teams to everyone need to be very innovative, and like we need to definitely adapt ourselves. So like a few months back, I in one of my shows, I openly just made a statement. Why not we use Radel? This was like even before the thought. So, because I saw after the World Cup, during the World Cup, how many injuries that our guys had. It's simply because I think Boa is much more, he knows much better than us. I mean, like, it's very difficult to take for a human body. The sudden climatic changes, it will be really adverse and it will be very difficult. So, like, I just added my thoughts. Why not we go to Radella? Because I have seen and I have played a couple of matches there as well, long time back. So I know this was a very decent place. So why not our guys just go and have their, before touring to a colder country, why not you go and have your sessions and drills in a place like that? So I think significantly we can see after the practice sessions in Radel, now in this particular series, there are 0 injuries as far as my knowledge. So like these sort of things can be brought. I mean, like, always we need to think out of the box, and also we need to analyze other teams and what they do. And personally, I know that many of the England batters, they do their batting drills with a baseball bat. It's simply because then they will have that middling ability. Rather than playing from the normal cricketing bat, they are practicing with a baseball bat. So like these kind of things can be done. I mean, there can be different thinkers and also people who are thinking out of the box. So if we can get certain people like this into our team, as Boa says, reliable and also a professional little bunch, a little circle, I think the future can be much more better than this.
Well said, man. Innovation, being, always look for that. We spoke about it at the beginning of the show that, you got to be always one step ahead of the opposition in order to perform. You can't underperform in all departments and expect to win. So that comes from, your support staff to your players to your administration. So it's a whole package. It's just not, one thing that, basically, what I say, Boa, we need to put our house in order. Probably we barely got, I think the qualifiers are in June, if I'm not mistaken, Yasiru. I think it's happening very, very, very quickly. And it's going to be back-to-back matches. Zimbabwe, not the easiest places to play, and under pressure. So lots of factors will come in, Boa. That you can have one bad day, one bad day in office. The weather factor can come in. A match can get washed off, and you may not get any points. So there are lots of odds going against you. So it's going to be an uphill task. I hope things will work out in Sri Lanka's favor for everybody's benefit. And what I'm going to say is, like, if anybody, I don't know whether they care to listen to this because they're at the end of the show. Everyone involved in cricket, starting now, get your act together and focus your mind in like as you rightly said, in that one direction, and ensure that the team delivers and we survive when we play in the World Cup. Because the fact is, this could have been the ideal opportunity for our chances. Forget about winning the World Cup. Now we are trying to qualify. But it will be a real fairy tale story if Sri Lanka qualifies for the World Cup and end up winning the World Cup in the subcontinent. You never know, right? I'm just saying. I mean, that's the ultimate fairy tale story that everybody would like to hear and everyone will want to write. And living in 1996, talking about that having won the World Cup, what they did is not going to work in 2023, mate. That's a long time ago. Time has passed, and what we did then and what we are doing now it's a different ball game. So let's be realistic. Get ready to face the music, and hope you'll come out of it. Boa?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, your allegory is great. It's it's almost poetic, But I think that's it's a long while away, and the way you make it, the way you sounded it, because that's the reality of the ground situation. Sounds like we might need another IMF loan the way things are going. So I was just trying to make a light-hearted moment of that. But look, I think with qualifiers, you've got to have a very, very specific game plan. You got to make sure you train a very specific skill set. And you've got to really focus on how you're going to execute that skill set and actually take the variables out of the equation, and you just control what you can control, which is how well you're going to play. And that stays true for any sport. I think in cricket, there's more so a slight more emphasis on the individual skill set. Just single-handedly, we've seen in the past, one person coming in, smashing the ball around the park can actually turn a game.
Yeah.
So I think it's just finding the right sort of mix and just making sure that, we execute on the day. But to do that, like I said, we've got to really strip things back. So it's going to be an interesting time. I to be frank, I have very little confidence based on this whole conversation. But, it's a challenge, and who knows, we might end up writing our own fairy tale.
Yeah, let's hope so.
At the moment, it's very much a fairy tale, isn't it?
It is that I don't believe in fairy tales. You got to make it a realistic story. Otherwise, it's going to be not a fairy tale. It's going to be a very sorry tale. So you better not. Hope that won't happen. You'll end up all will be at the end by come June. We will know our fate whether we are in the I think by end July we'll know whether we are in the World Cup or not. Then it'll be too late for us to go and put the house back in order, mate. The damage is already done.
You do not want to be Cinderella at 12 o'clock. You want to try and wrap everything up at 11:30. Don't let your the carriage turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
So if that gives you a hint, I think with qualifiers you got to try and finish it as quickly as you can.
Quickly as possible.
Qualify as quickly as you can. Make sure you leave nothing to chance, and you got to prepare in a certain way. So if the powers that be are listening, if there's anything you can take from this conversation, this is for educational purposes only. Don't leave it in the hands of anyone else. Control what you can control. Prepare very, very, very thoroughly, so that when it comes to the crunch time, you can execute your skill set. And that skill set might be just one or two real basic things you do really well. And that alone might get us across the line. So I think it's up to the powers that be to understand what is required, and you prepare in a certain way, and just go do your thing on the day.
Well said, Boa. I think, Yasu, thank you very much for being a part of the show, mate. I gave you very short notice to be a part of it. And I wish you well in all your future endeavors and whatever you do. And it's interesting. I think you need balls to say what be truthful in what you do, and be a critic, but make sure that you have enough facts to back you up in what you say. What do you say, Boa? I mean,
yes.
Be a great journalist. I think you got what it takes in time to come. You're young, so great future ahead, mate. I'll wish you well. Yeah, Boa.
Thank you very much.
We live in a world where people who write advertorial masquerade as journalists. But be fearless, say the truth, write what you feel, back your opinion with facts, and just be fearless. And in this game of life, the ultimate currency is respect. That's why this guy who's hosting our show, he says what he feels, he speaks his mind, he doesn't hide behind a curtain. And that's why everyone respects what he has to say. So it's the same for you as a budding journalist. So I wish you all the best. Wish you nothing.
Thank you very much, Boa.
Boa, Always a pleasure talking to you, mate. Because as I say that I learn a lot talking to you. The great wisdom that you have, and the how good you are in what you do. Wish you nothing but the very best, mate. I hope the troubled times are over. I know that Yasuru, that Boa was affected during the recent floods in New Zealand, but he was lucky. Yeah, he was lucky. He got away, and he was fortunate. But there's nothing really. What can I say? That that there is life. Though you were under that, you were. What can I say? That you were the winds hit you, mate. It could have been disastrous, but you got away with minor hiccups, and you are still alive.
Still alive. I'm still alive, and there are people who are far worse affected. So good. Life goes on. Tomorrow's another day. That's how I look at it.
Alright, guys, I wish you guys a great week ahead, and big thanks to everybody who joined the show and was being with us, everyone who contributed, and a big thanks to the guy who is hosting this show all the way from Australia, and I hope you listen to it, and Harpo from Harpo's, and that 12th Man Bar in Australia, that all you guys, thanks for your contribution, and until next time, I wish everyone a great week ahead, and see you soon. Thanks, guys, once again. It was great talking to you, boys. Take care. Bye-bye.